Hello there, it's me, Chase. I am back here on a beautiful, beautiful Saturday morning. And I've had some, free time here a little bit. A little time between things getting a little busy later on in the day. But I wanted to talk a little bit about a show I started watching. Um, and the only reason I started watching this is because a coworker piqued my interest. Um, it's a show called Attack on Titan. I had heard of it before, but I'm just gonna be straight up with you guys. Anime. I'm not a fan of anime. Now, if you know me well enough, I love stories. I love um, good storytelling. This is becoming such a passion of mine, and that I want to start. I know I'm not a successful author myself. I have a little short book. I actually have a copy of it sitting right up here. Uh, it's like I said, it's not very big. It's pretty small because it's just a short story. The Champion King of the Remnant. That's mine. And it is a gospel story told in allegory. Well, it's sort of meant to be allegory. It's supposed to just condense the gospel message about. And one of the purposes of the book, I'm promoting my own book here. I get to do that though, because it's my book. I can promote my book whenever I want. But it's meant to express who Jesus really is. We were living in a society today of seeing Jesus as a helpless beggar who wants people to like him. And that's not the Jesus of the Bible at all. He is a powerful savior. He saves his people fully and completely. He is a conqueror. He is a champion. He is a king for his people. That's what I wanted to portray him as, even though I don't say his actual name in the book. It's just a grand, incredible king. It's almost like if you look at Attack on Titan, I'm bringing it all the way full circle, I guess. Attack on Titan, it's like he's like a giant Titan, except he doesn't look creepy and disgusting and fat, and he doesn't eat people, and doesn't cause mindless destruction, kind of stuff like that. He's beautiful, he's glorious, and he's wonderful. But anyways, and he kills bad people. We know Eren in Attack on Titan, at least as far as I've seen so far, uses his unique ability for good. But anyways, I started watching the show, obviously in English. It's again, I'm gonna be pretty brutal against anime here. I'm sorry, um, but he, I hate the Japanese voice over in anime even more than I just don't really like anime. I've got nothing against Japanese people. Don't get me wrong. When I meet Japanese people, I'm like, hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Yeah, I'm not a racist, so but that it's I don't think that's totally uncommon. I mean, look, I'm Hispanic, and I was telling a coworker yesterday because I confused Mexican culture with Puerto Rican stuff, and I was like, look, I don't care about. I'm just not into my Mexican side. I don't care about it. My last name's Orozco. I just say Orozco. I'm just do it the totally white way. I just don't care about it. I'm not interested in Mexican culture. I'm not interested in learning Spanish. I've got no interest in it whatsoever. So it's the same thing with kind of the Japanese thing. I'm not my thing, man. Just not my thing. If it's your thing, that's cool. That's awesome. That do your thing, But the Japanese voice stuff, and I'm gonna go off on anime here for a little bit, here, but I think it's gonna help with my approval and my what I like about the show, actually. So if you can get a guy like me who just is not into anime to actually like an anime show, I think that's something cool. It's something interesting. So. But yeah, but even in the English, I still go, oh gosh, it's just, I'm gonna get into that. But, so he piqued my interest in the show because, one of the reasons that I'm just not a big anime guy is because, I think I think there needs to be a sense of reality in shows, and I think anime has in recent years kind of attempted to be more real, you know, rather than just straight sci-fi kind of unbelievable in a bad way kind of world, you know. Excuse me. So I think it's done a good job in that sense. Um, but when I would watch certain anime shows, it's kind of more of a cosmetic thing, you know. Let me see if I can describe it properly. Like they'll give you. Let me put it this way. So I've seen anime shows or just cartoons, whatever. I don't know if they're actually shows, but maybe they're just like some anime, quick anime cartoon put together. I don't know. Of usually girls in school uniforms, which I just find strange. Again, I don't get the Japanese culture thing at all. but but and a lot of times they'll have like a this just gigantic Barrett sniper rifle. That thing fires a 50 caliber bullet, dude. And that's a big gun. That's not something you just, you know, you see in Call of Duty, the guys just running around with like it's a sniper, like just a run and gun sniper rifle. You don't do that in real life with one of those things. That's a heavy gun. That's a big beast. And that's a gun that fires a bullet at a velocity so fast it doesn't need to hit you to kill you. It can just fly by your head and blow half of your brain, half this whole half of your head. If it just flies, you know, like that, your entire gone. Just the velocity itself is going to kill you. It could hit you right in the center and slice you in half and blow out all your intestines, just and hit your spine, and you're in two pieces at least. That's a big gun. But then there's the other thing is that I see them running around with a little P90 submachine gun. You ever seen the little P90 submachine guns? Running around with one of those, and shooting it like it's, you know, a standard little. Now a P90 is its design is to be very close quarters. It's a compact. I mean that's a compact little thing, man. That's a strange looking little gun. But it's designed to be a close quarters combat weapon with 9mm ammunition. But I see people in anime stuff using it like it's a standard medium long range carbine assault rifle, and that's not what those are meant for. That it at a certain range, I would say at about I've never studied P90s, but based on its barrel length, it's just I mean, you know, just kind of like that. It's tiny. When it comes out of the main body of the gun, it just goes about that far. That's about it. Now with that kind of barrel, especially if you're shooting 9mm, after about, I'm probably being kind here, but after about 15-20 meters, your accuracy is all over the place. You're not gonna hit. I'm likely not gonna hit across my street anybody by sheer accuracy. I'm gonna be hit him. If I hit him, I'm gonna hit him by luck. And even if I do hit him, especially if they're wearing some form of body armor, I'm not gonna penetrate that body armor, or at least if it's like steel plated body armor for sure. Like it's not going to go through that at all. You know, it's going to hurt. It's going to be like a paintball gun, but it ain't going to kill them. So, you know, my point is, even in when their attempts to appear real and have more, I guess, a little tactical look, which looks cool, right? It's just cosmetic. It's just like, well, it looks cool, it looks realistic, and all that stuff. And you know, these are the things the Americans use. So let's go with that. And not doing your research and actually understanding the properties of these firearms and stuff like that. You know, I'm a firearm enthusiast. I shoot guns. I have guns. I enjoy what people call the gun culture here in America. Yeah, America. You know, yeah. That's one of the things that I think is that's what kept anime from being, I think, personally, like especially for someone like me, taken seriously. So you know, that's one of the issues. For me, another one of the issues with anime is its romanticism, and I think that's what it does with realism is its attempts to be realistic, but it cannot seem to get over this nagging romanticism that has just infected the genre. Like I said, with firearms, it romanticizes them in a way. It has the looks cool, but it doesn't really do what would actually happen in real firearm scenarios. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that to make a good show, you have to do everything right. You know, I'm not. I think it's good for authors you can't make a good story unless you embellish a little bit, because if you listen to real life soldiers, special forces guys, I saw one guy on Joe Rogan's program a little while ago. He was in special forces. I think he was a Navy SEAL. He said, the movies, they don't really, none of them really portray real life soldier life, the way it actually is. A lot of it, he says that most of the time when you see all the action, even in video games, when you see all the action, he says that's not very often at all. He says that's probably like maybe 10, I'm paraphrasing here a little bit, but like 10% most of what they do. Everything else is prep work, Everything else is like boringly sitting in a room, with the metal foldable chairs and just going over plans and whatnot, that boring stuff. But nobody wants to see that in movies. Nobody wants to sit there for hours and hours and hours and watch them do this stuff, this meticulous planning. They want to see explosions, they want to see gunfire, they want to see bodies hitting the floor and just all that kind of stuff, But so you obviously you don't want to go way too far into it, kind of like that. But I do think that you should try to make some attempt to be to make it believable. That's really what I want to say here, is that you got to make it believable in some way, shape, or form, and make an attempt, a meaningful attempt to make something believable, something that you could see, like, yeah, that would actually happen. So, but anyways, with this show, I think one of the things that this show does that's really, really awesome, what I really like about the show, is how it makes the attempt to portray, I don't know if it's their intention to do this, but what war is like, and you get the real sense of, well, let me first just kind of provide a little bit of backstory based on what I've learned from watching the show. So there's these giant humanoid creatures called Titans, and I don't know, at least I haven't finished season 1, so I'm going off of an unfinished season, so just mind you. But I'm at like episode 11, 12-ish, something like that. These Titans, so we don't know much about them at all at this point. I don't. And I'm avoiding spoilers as best I can so I don't ruin any of that. This show's been around for a while, apparently, a couple of years. I'm like, wow, I didn't know it was around that long. I knew it was around, but it was really popular. But again, I lost my interest in anime a long time ago. So I was just kind of like, why would I watch this? Anime is kind of so there's these Titans, and they eat humans. They don't eat other animals. They don't eat anything else, but they eat humans. And they go out of their way to eat humans. They don't just kind of crush humans like, blah, get on my way, blah, blah, blah. And then, if they have a chance, like, oh, I'll just eat this one, and then just, crush them. Like in the beginning, the main character, Aaron's mom, is trapped, and this Titan could have just kind of like, just said, nah, it just kept going. But she went out of her way to pull the rubble out to grab the mom and just rip her in half and just eat her. So the show is not, doesn't pander, it can be pretty graphic. It's very much graphic in that sense. But yeah, it doesn't pull punches. Men and women die pretty gruesomely in this show. It's pretty graphic. It has a horror element to it, and I think that's very unique. I'll say that. Very unique. I'm not totally against horror as long as it's not used to just glorify death. And this show I don't think does that. It doesn't. I don't think it's doing that. Anyways, so you have the Titans, and then but they're overrunning humanity, and so humanity has basically retreated to this. You could almost say this massive fortress over an entire geography. It goes for miles and miles and miles and miles. I'm not talking about a fortress like a medieval fortress kind of thing, but I'm talking about there's cities involved in this fortress. So there's like you got different rings. You got the outer rings, and a ring in that one, a ring in that one, and the rings are made up of walls, but those walls have key points, city points on each of them, and people live in those cities, and the walls are like super high, so the Titans can't get in and keep the people safe. But the Titans keep coming, and there's these special Titans. So there's the armored Titan, and there's the other one. I forgot what the other one is, but he apparently has the ability to teleport, and just that's very interesting. But you don't know much about him except that that at least the teleportation one, he's the big one. He can reach over a wall, and he's the one who has no skin. He's the one who's you just see his muscle, you know. So like I said, so far I don't know anything about him other than that he apparently has intelligence. The other Titans, the normal Titans, don't have intelligence. This guy apparently does. And he comes in, he just kind of boop appears, bursts in the gate, and then he's gone. And then when the gates burst in, the Titans come in, and then they start eating everybody. And you know, the survivors retreat further. And when they lose one ring, they have to retreat to a ring further in. They lose people. So humanity's on the brink of extinction, in other words. And they're continuing being closed in. It's almost like, I hate to use Hitler as a comparison, but I'm trying to draw an analogies for you to understand. It's almost like when Hitler's regime is slowly just kind of dwindling, and he's being surrounded on all sides, and it's only a matter of time at this point before it's the end. Now, I didn't use Hitler because I'm trying to compare humanity to Hitler. I'm making a point that gives you sort of an idea of what's happening. And so they're being boxed in more and more and more, and so humanity is fighting to survive. And you don't have equal technological advantage over the Titans. You know, they don't have their own versions, like you know, like in Pacific Rim. Excuse me. So to fight the monsters, they have the big robots. You know, you don't have any of that for human. You just have normal human beings trained with these special equipment. I don't know the details about it right now, so I'm not going to make an idiot of myself and try to explain it. You train. The soldiers train for this special equipment to take down Titans. Honestly, strategically, it's not the best way to go about it. I mean, given the way the Titans are, it's not exactly the best way to go about it. But in a certain sense, you can kind of understand the dilemma that they're in, because when you're on retreat in the way that humanity is in the show, it can be extremely hard to get any kind of technological advantage when you're constantly being pinned down, basically being suppressed. You can't get out you don't have breathing room to start developing technology. I mean, there's, so far as I've seen, there's no sign of scientific research going on anywhere. It's just trying to survive, you know, what they have. And that makes sense, you know. And that's one of the things I can commend the show for. I don't know if the show does this intentionally, but it makes sense that, you know, all they have other than that is just these old cannons, you know, like I'm talking like, you know, 16th, 17th century, 18th century cannon stuff, you know, 19th century cannons, you know, where you just kind of, and then it shoots this big old cannonball out. That's basically all they have as artillery. That's it. And the Titan, that doesn't do a whole lot against the Titans because they regenerate. You have to hit them in the back of the neck with a special slice to kill them. So it makes sense, because in order to have technological advancements to be able to design weapons that are more efficient against these things, you have to have some breathing room. You have to have some space for your scientists to work. You have to have resources to build the equipment necessary to accommodate for your technological advancements like that. And when you're on the run, like the way humanity is, you're on the brink of extinction, you're constantly on your heels, you don't really have a whole lot of room to do that. Even while your scientists are dead, the more people who die, the less scientists there are, and the slower your progress would be. So that I can see that happening. And so you're in total survival mode with whatever you got, kind of thing. So that's kind of a little bit of background, you know, of the show. Now, and again, I may have gotten some things wrong. I apologize. Like I said, I'm not a huge anime fan. Give me some slack for doing my best here. Now, the other thing is that what I wanted to talk about, one of the unique things about the show is I think it does a very, very good job in light of the context of the overall lore and plot, background plot, you could say. I think it does an amazing job of conveying the message of survival and desperation. I think you really feel a sense of claustrophobia, I guess, as they're getting closed tighter and tighter in. There is a strong element of desperation here, and I don't know if it has to do with anything to do with the over romanticization, if that's a word, it's probably not a word, but anyways, over romanticizing of everybody's ploy or distress. But it works. I mean, it really makes me go, dude, this is a dark time, and this is a dark show. It's not for, like, kids ish. There's blood and all that stuff, and people getting eaten alive, and I'm not talking about just dudes getting. I'm talking about they even some relatively nice looking girls get eaten alive. I mean, just no, it has no regard for any. You have this idea, because normally, again, you watch TV shows, is the pretty girl always survives, right? She always survives, because she's pretty. You don't want to kill her. It's just everybody, yeah. It's kind of like eye candy that keeps people interested. The pretty girl, but this show, I mean, it no, not really. It'll kill the pretty girl. Probably the only people who don't die, aren't going to die, are the three primary characters: Eren, his sister Mikasha, and their friend. I forgot their friend's name. I don't remember his name right now. He's the yellow-haired dude. They seem like the three main ones, even though Eren is the main one of all of them. There's an interesting dynamic of main characters between Eren and his sister Mikasha, who's not really his sister. But there's an interesting dynamic there that I might talk about in a moment. But those three seem to be the only characters who are totally safe. The plot is driven by them, basically. It's their story, in other words, being told. Now, at some point, maybe the yellow-haired dude will end up dead. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me, because he's not really like main character stuff. He is still a support character, but he's a good friend. He's the best friend of Eren, basically, and that's why I think sometimes shows will, in order to keep an audience and keep that wow factor and keep the audience in, it might sometimes kill that key support character to drive the main protagonist up the wall, and just like unleash a whole new level of insanity, you could say, and emotional input by the audience. Some shows do that, so I don't know if they'll do that in the future. Maybe they've already done it. I have no idea, because I have not watched the rest of it. So anyways, I'm certain though Mikasha ain't gonna go. Mikasha is a fan favorite. She's actually my favorite character, because like I said, she's too much of a fan favorite. She's like Daryl in Walking Dead. I think the reason why they didn't kill Daryl in The Walking Dead is because everybody loved him. Like, we ain't gonna watch the show if you killed Daryl. He's awesome. We love Daryl. I liked Daryl for a while. I don't really like the show anymore. Anyways, yeah, I think that's the kind of character she's become. Like, you don't kill her. No. That's the one pretty girl you don't get rid of. So anyways, if they kill her, that's when the show's ending. Okay, so I actually think, I'll be honest with you, I think they would kill Eren before they killed Mikasha, because I think she's almost like the secret protagonist. She's, like I said, there's an interesting dynamic between those two characters. It's almost like he's the main character, but not really. It seems like to me. So anyways, like I said, there's a sense of desperation in the show that works, and there's a psychological warfare going on here that works. Dude, everybody goes through, you feel for the characters. They start out, it's like any soldier who goes to war. That's what I like about the show. I'll be honest with you. That's what I like about the show. It does a great job of conveying the psychological warfare of war, what it does to a person. Now, it may not do this to a person who's like an insane zealot of some kind, It may not do do it to that person, and that's why you don't typically hear stories about those kinds of people, because there's nothing interesting hearing about a guy who's already kind of, psycho for war, because war makes you psycho, and so if you're already psycho going into war, there's not much of a character arc there, so it's not all that interesting. But you take a normal person who's just a normal kid, and then trying to make them a soldier. Now that's an interesting dynamic right there. So you got these kids, they witness horror as they watch their mom get eaten alive, and then the Eren goes on he devotes the rest of his life to killing all the Titans as a result. But even then, with all the rage that you see him have in that opening episode, excuse me, there is that doesn't make him a soldier, you know. He ends their first. I don't want to do too many spoilers here, but like their first after that first episode, there's like episode 2 and 3, and that's all the preparation work to becoming the soldiers and whatnot. You meet a lot of different characters there. Some of them die before the end of like 7 or 8, you know. But like the show makes an attempt to get close to these, because these are human beings, because you want the audience to have, and I think this is one of the things that the show producers are consciously aware of, because you got to have the audience have some kind of emotional attachment to these characters, even though they're not main characters. They're all expendable, in other words. To have an emotional attachment, because that's going to have that dramatic impact as they go later in the show and watch these guys die horrific deaths. And that will cause you to be more attached to the actual main characters when they witness the death of all their friends that they went to the proverbial boot camp with. I don't know exactly what they'd call it in the show. I'm just going to equate it to boot camp. To the boot camp with and all that stuff. That makes you feel even more empathy for the main characters when they see all their friends that they made friends with and they fought with, you know, they had these pride battles with and stuff like that, you know, that then now they're all dying, and it provides more emotional impact and more empathy for the characters, the main characters, and that drives an audience to it, you know, to want to watch, you know, see what happens next. It's a form of manipulation when you're honest, but that's good storytelling. That's the way it's got to go. It's the way it's got to be. So anyways, so yeah, I mean, it you know, so they, even when they get in that first battle, they're all, you know, they go into that first battle thinking, all right, we're going to do this, you know, this is what we trained for, kind of stuff like that. And then when the Titans come and they start eating everybody, that's when the reality sets in. That's when they start losing their poo. That's when the fecal matter hits the air redistribution device, as it were. That's when all of a sudden they're like, this is the real thing. And everybody, like a lot of the characters, they go into panic mode. They freak out, they freeze, they're paralyzed, and then and as a result of paralysis, more of their friends end up getting eaten. You know, one of them gets cornered, his equipment dies out on him. They rely on their equipment to be able to escape the Titans. When it dies out, dude, you're screwed. And then, you know, freezes and watches his friend get torn to bits and eaten. And I'm not talking about friends like you know, older guys and stuff. I'm talking about kids. These are young people getting eaten alive, boys and girls, you know. So the next couple episodes, like, man, it really just, like, it spends almost the entire episode the horror of this whole thing. And that it's after that everybody you start to see the characters go through. The ones that survive are scarred now, and then you start to see them really pull things together. And there's still that psychological war factor, but that's the thing that it's doing is that in the reality of war, you know, you got one of my favorite examples. I'm a World War II nerd, so I'm gonna use a lot of World War II analogies. But I loved to research D-Day. I tried to do my best to get as close to the actual action of Omaha Beach as I could, because a lot of the footage has been lost, because that was, according to reports and what we know, that was a bloodbath. That was just a freaking massacre. But there are images of guys in the boats as they're approaching the beach. You can see the beach ahead, and you can see guys trying to look over and seeing what's going on. And they have really no idea. They didn't have the kind of communication we have today, where you can have, like, just straight up, like, minute by minute intel feeding to you and your helmet, because everybody's connected by radio these days. You don't have none of that back then. You just got, like, you know, basically when you leave the boat, you got a little bit of intel, and that's all you got, carrying you the rest of the way to the beach. And then now you're going to find out what's changed since then the hard way. A lot can change in those minutes. It took a while, many minutes, to get to the beaches, from the boats to the beach, and that was already a rocky ride. Not even all the boats made it to the beach. Some of them sank because the waters were you know, yeah, the waves were, because the weather was bad, you know, and there were, I believe the Germans were shooting artillery at them, and I think it knocked out some of them. So I mean, you could be just, imagine yourself just sitting in this boat and you're just like, oh, and you're already puking because you're just, you know, just, and then you look over and there's a boat right there and just boom, an artillery shell just takes them out. I mean, you're like, I could be next. Any moment, I'm a sitting duck. There's nothing I can do. If I see that shell coming, I'm dead. You know, there's literally nothing you can do. But see, the point is, when they get in those, they sign up for boot camp, and they're all because of Pearl Harbor, everybody wants to go. They're like, oh, we're gonna freaking stick it to those guys, you know, those freaking Axis, those Japanese people, and then the Germans, those freaking Germans, those Krauts, you know, and so they're all pumped up and ready to go. But then, and you're all pumped, but then here comes D-Day, dude. Here's D-Day. Here it is. And you got guys who can't sleep. You know, you got guys who are just restless because, you know, as you're sitting on those ships and you're in your bunks with your dudes, like half of you guys, and you don't know who, ain't going to come back. Maybe none of you are going to come back, you know? And that's when the reality hits. And then when you hit those beaches, when those doors come down and immediately you come under fire, your buddies are getting blown to bits. You might have been shot. You don't even know it because the adrenaline's going nuts right now. And you don't find out until you get to the top of the hill and the battle wins. You realize I got shot in the leg or something like that. That can happen. That's happened before. That does happen regularly. When adrenaline's rushing like that, typically what happens is your body goes into it automatically does this. It rushes blood into your core to protect your vital organs. It just does this instinctively. So with less blood flow in your arms and stuff like that, that's why you can get like tingling in your fingers when you're in a massive adrenaline rush. But what can also happen is because of that, you know, your blood helps your nervous system, right? So if you got shot in the arm when you're having a massive adrenaline rush, you might even know you got shot in the arm. It might not even register, you know, it might tingle a little bit, you know, but you're not even thinking about any of that. You're just like, I gotta survive, kind of thing like that. And then later when the adrenaline runs off, then all of a sudden, your blood comes back to that area, and now you're gonna start bleeding more and more and stuff like that. That can happen. That's why, you know, in firearm training, they always tell you, you know, this is the area that'll, you know, they always think you shoot them in the head, kind of stuff like that. You know, the head can be hard to hit. But chest area, there's a lot of vital organs right here, a lot of blood flow right here. I've seen footage of a guy who got shot in the chest. He died like 20 seconds later, just fell and dropped dead, and you saw blood just start, literally the moment he got shot, just blood just starts filling up his shirt, and then 20 seconds later just collapsed and died. So you can take 2 or 3 shots right here, and those are kill shots right there. They don't even have to be big caliber bullets. It could be 9mm, and it'll kill you. Unless you're wearing body armor. That's one of the reasons why they wear body armor right here, because there are vital organs right here. You got your heart right here, you got lungs right here, and you got a bunch of, not to mention, not too far down is your liver, and then you have a lot of nerves going through here. A lot of blood comes in here. So this is a kill zone right here. This is the triangle. That's what they call it. A kill zone right here. And then of course you can hit them in the neck too. But anyways, I'm always fascinated with these kind of conversations. I'm sorry, I'm a weirdo. But then that's the reality. It after that battle, dude, if you survive, you ain't the same. You're not the same person. This was not what you thought it was going to be. This was way worse. This is war, dude. And that's what I think I like about the show. What it does a great job of that psychological. There's a psychological aspect of war. You know, you see it's not just anime that does this, but a lot of movies and TV shows. You know, there's the show called The Dragon Prince. Now that arguably that's meant more for kids. I do like the show, but it is meant more for kids. I like the show. I was interested in the show because it was made by some of the guys who made the Avatar show, which I loved that show. But you see in the very end of The Dragon Prince, which again for me it just sort of took me out of the show, but I understand why they did this. So I don't want to beat him too much. But at the end of the show, after the big battle between the two sides, and the good guys win. So the good guys you see at the end of the show taking the hands of the survivors of the bad guys and say, "Hey, come on, it's a good fight." But in reality, that stuff doesn't happen, dude. When you're in war, against the other side, dude, there are no rules. There's survive. You are there to survive, and you're gonna kill any of these guys you have to survive. And especially, you see them freaking kill your buddy. Now that guy, he might kill your buddy because he killed his buddy, but you're like, he killed my buddy, I'm gonna kill that guy. And that's just what war does, dude. It's brutal. It's not fun. I hate war. I'll tell you that. Even though I'm obviously you can tell if you should be able to tell by now, I got a pretty good fascination with war, but I still hate it. Yeah, I wish it was not a thing, despite my twisted fascination with it. But that's what war is. Now, it's easier to hate the enemy in this show. By the way, this is the next thing I want to talk about here. It's easy to hate the enemy in this show because they're mindless human eating psychos things. But what happens in a war, and I guess the show is going to start going more into this. I like this about this Attack on Titan show, because it seems like the enemy is not just Titans, and it seems like where the show is going. Again, I haven't seen everything else, so just cut me some slack. But it seems like where everything is going, the Titans aren't really the main enemies here. There's something else going on in the background that the show's alluding to in the first season, which I think is a good job. It does a good job of doing that. You want to do that with your shows, and that's what I want to do with when my bigger novel that I'm writing. I'm hoping that I'm getting across the message that while there's an enemy in this first book, nothing's what it seems. There's more to what's going on than what it seems like. That keeps people interested in coming back for more. So I like that realistic war aspect. But it also is, one of the things that's unique about this particular situation, why it's so horrifying, is that when you usually go to war, again, you're going to war against other human beings. That's usually what it is. What if you're going to war against people who want to eat you? I mean, just want to literally right there on the spot grab you and just chow on you. That's going to be a different psychological effect right there. It's not like when the Americans went on the beaches in Germany that they were like, the Germans are waiting for them up there. They're up there. They're not even going to shoot at them. They just want them to come up so they can eat them. Not doing that. If that was the case, that'd be different. I would be like, dude, I don't want to go up there. They want to freaking eat me. Just blow the whole place. Just blow it sky high. But this is a different case. That's how would you handle that one? That's a good question that the show I think asks. It's one thing to see your buddy get shot dead right next to you. It's another thing to just watch him get eaten alive, and he's sitting there screaming for help. Help me! And then he's gone, and then all you see is just his legs just go into the body of this thing. I mean, that's gonna do something really freaky to you. I mean, because one of my biggest fears, I'll tell you, I don't want to be eaten alive. I don't want to be eaten alive. I don't want to be burned alive. I don't want to drown. I don't want to suffocate. I would rather just get shot in the head and I'm done. But or have my head cut off, something like that. But eaten alive, dude, no. I don't want to. No, I would save one for myself, and if I see it coming, I'm just like. That's what I would rather do. I think most people would agree with me. I don't want to be eaten alive. So that's what the show does. And again, like I said, did a really good job of this. So I don't want to spend too much more time, and I think I made my point. There are some things though in terms of criticism. Like it has the show. This is where the show took me out of it. And when I say take me out of it, I mean that in a bad way, as in, I didn't see this as being compelling. You have further inside the walls. So I guess the further you inside the walls, you get the sort of aristocracy sort of thing. There's this guy, you don't really know much about him. I don't even know his name. He's a big dude. He's your stereotypical selfish, greedy white dude, kind of thing, And he's like, when they find out another one of the walls in the cities have been breached, he's living lofty in this big old castle thing. So while everybody else is dying, he's there just like, just eating all the food he wants, and he's having a good time, and blah 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 blah. Again, when I first saw this scene, I'm like, I know what this guy's supposed to be. And see, that's the problem. When someone's doing that, you're like, that should be evidence to you that you've made a one-dimensional character who's, even by antagonistic standards, is poorly made. And so And I want to do something in terms of like make a video of making antagonists that I've come to learn as I watch TV and movies and stuff like that, that I think is important, that I want to try to apply to my own story writing, in making antagonists, where you can go off and where you can go off in two different directions, in other words. But in terms of this guy, he's just your standard. I don't care about people. I'm the rich guy and all that kind of stuff. And you know, the reality is look, I understand that there are wealthy people in the world who are full of themselves. There's just no denying that. Not at all. But here's, like, I'll be honest with you. Every single wealthy, I work at an auto detailing shop where guys were bringing in Porsches all the time and nice cars, doctors and just people who work in real estate and all that kind of stuff. Like, they come in with these nice suits, man. I mean, just like, whoa. Some of the most down-to-earth people I've ever met. Totally honest with you. And some of them have given me some great advice, life advice and stuff. Great, nice people, you know. There are certain things about the way they live their life that I would disagree with, but nice people. They're not like that. So, in fact, I'd be willing to bet I could sit down with the CEO of Amazon and we could have a pretty chill conversation. I'd be willing to bet that. I think we just need to get rid of this stereotype because it's not healthy for society. I don't want to get too into politics here. I do have my political opinions, but we do need to get rid of the stereotype that rich means just snobby. The only reason you ever got rich is because you're just snobby and greedy and you're just some kind of gangster, kind of thing like that. That stereotype needs to go. Most of these guys worked really, really hard, and they continue to work hard for what they have. And so I don't know if the show intends to do that with this stereotype. Sometimes stereotypes just come by tradition. It's just that's just how we've always understood what nasty, mean, snotty people are. You know, not necessarily on the enemy side. You know, he's not conspiring against the good guys, but he's just one of those people who get in the way. You know, he's just like you just would rather him just, gosh, get rid of that guy. He's a jerk. He's selfish. Blah blah blah. That's a stereotype that I think needs to go. So that's what this guy is, and then there's more of that when Micajah starts to suddenly just go freaking insane. When you start seeing her killing Titans left and right, there's people trying to get, again, the walls have been breached, so survivors are trying to get to into the next ring, out of the danger, the immediate danger. But there's this another rich dude, and he's big and he's white and he's got balding on the top of his head that they always do. And he's got his cohorts with him, kind of thing like that. And he's got this massive merchant cart thing he's trying to shove into the wall, into the gate, the only gate out. And people can't get out because this thing's in the way. He can't get it through. And I got to get all this stuff through. This is my life, you know, this is my livelihood, blah, 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 blah. You know, this, again, the standard, I don't care about these people. All I care about is my goods, which doesn't make sense. Honestly, it doesn't make sense from a business because you need people to have a good business. But it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, but still, first of all, I don't see someone wealthy doing something like that. He'd probably more want to save his own life and just get out of there as fast as possible. He might knock people out of the way to get himself out of there, but that I don't see happening. But it's just this one-dimensional kind of you see it when you see him, like, hey, he's talking to Micajah, I will pay you to help me do this, I'm gonna pay you well, and blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, this is just so, it's just not, it doesn't work. It's not authentic, you know. I like look at Tony Stark. You know, everybody loves Tony Stark, right? He was a rich guy, you know, and he started out a jerk, right? Started out a bit of a jerk. Why can't you have something like that in the show? Because it worked with Tony Stark, works with Batman. So why not? You know, I think that'd be an interesting dynamic. But that's the way they decided to go. And I think one of the reasons why you do that is because, you know, when you make shows, again, this goes back to making antagonists and stuff like that. A lot of times, one of the big mistakes creators make is simply they're making antagonists for the sake of antagonism. That's it. And I don't think that's a good thing to do. You want an antagonist in there who is obviously meant to be an antagonist, who obstructs and obscures. An antagonist doesn't always have to be an immediate enemy. It could be someone on the good guy side who disagrees with the main character on how to do something, and may use means, so they both have the same goal but different ways of doing it, and may end up conflicting with one another. That's antagonism. But so with that in mind, make an antagonist, let's say a bad guy, who is, you got to spend some time with him, in other words, to understand his psychology, because at the end of the day, Thanos was intelligent. Thanos had, we can't really call him human, but he was, let's just say human in the sense of intelligence. He had some sense of a moral compass, and some sense of righteousness that is twisted, obviously, but he has that, like any other human does. Well, any normal human anyway. But obviously his is twisted, because he's not, even though in the cartoons, in the comics, Thanos was just kind of just blew stuff up. But in this one, obviously they wanted to make him more compelling, and I like this Thanos. But that's the thing, is that he was more than just a bad guy. He had his own intentions for why he was doing what he was doing. And I think that's a better way to make an antagonist. It just makes it's meant mostly to push the story, that you're not making a simplistic story kind of thing like that. But like I said, I'll talk more about that later on. Like, I want to talk about why the Joker, like for instance, in The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. No, not The Dark Knight Rises. It's just in The Dark Knight, in the second Nolan Batman movie. Why is it that the Joker, people had more sympathy for the Joker than they did Batman, which shouldn't have happened? That's not the way it should have happened. You should have walked away from The Dark Knight seeing the Joker as a psychopath, and you're ready to see this guy's reign of terror end. But you don't really, if you're being honest, you don't really feel that in the end. You're like, I want to see more of this guy in the next one, kind of stuff. And you're all that's why one of the reasons why everyone's all depressed when Heath Ledger died, because like, no one can do his Joker. Everybody was talking more about the movie ended up becoming about Heath Ledger's Joker than what I think Christopher Nolan was trying to convey in the movie itself. But the Joker in that movie was insane. He was a psychopath. He was completely evil. But you don't feel that way about him. And I want to talk about why that is. Why that's not a good thing. And I was sympathetic towards him. I found him a fascinating character, more fascinating than Batman was. There's a reason for that, and I think that needs to be explored. I want to explore that. Why things like that should not happen with an antagonist, with a bad guy, especially one like the Joker, like Heath Ledger's Joker. So, anyways, like I said, in terms of the romanticism, this is one of the reasons why I don't like anime. Just the one part where this, and let me just say, I'm in passing. Micajah is probably my favorite character. She's so much more interesting to me than even Eren is. She seems like she's a bit of a Mary Sue. Like, so far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot in terms of like. Well, I mean, she did have a moment of vulnerability so far, when she was willing to give up because she thought she lost Eren. That she was willing to just, this is it, but she couldn't give up. She just couldn't stop. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Again, over romanticized for my taste, but I'm doing my best to look past that super dramaticness that the anime just does. That's one of my big turnoffs to it. I was watching a Gundam show once, and these two lovers of different sides, they're on opposing sides, but these two lovers are in the middle of a battle, and they can't help expressing their love for each other while you're in the middle of a battle. And I'm like, what are you doing? This is the worst time for something like that. You're like, wait, what the heck? You're supposed to be fighting each other. Can you imagine you're on the same radio channel as that, and you're listening to that while you're trying to kill the other guys? Like, come on, man, that's just it just takes you totally out of the thing, and just I was like, what is this? But in light of it, with that note, there was one scene where this is where Micajah started becoming really my favorite character. When they take you into her backstory. I don't really agree with the way they do the backstory thing. It just, again, it sort of takes me out of the story, but because it does it in the middle of a battle, kind of stuff like that. You know, I want to know where the battle's going from here, and then it stops the flow of the battle to, all right, let's go back in time to see why this person's the way they are, kind of stuff like that. And I don't disagree with that in and of itself. I think that's fine, that's cool, but I don't think it was like when you're in the middle of a battle kind of thing like that, not really the right time to do it. I don't think, you know. I would rather have the battle go on and you see the characters behaving the way they do and keep the audience interested in why they do that, and then later on reveal that when you have a cool down period, in other words. But that's just me. So but there's you find out why Micajah's the way she is, and it's kind of cool. There's like a little plot twist. She wasn't like that when she was a kid. She was this lively girl who loved things, because she seems sort of like emo-ish, like super stoic, you know. And I was that for a while. I was like, well, this is kind of, what is this? You know, is she going to be just sort of this emotionless robot thing the whole show? You know, but she's not, and I like that. I was like, cool. This is a very complex character. So, but you find out, you know, when she was a kid, she wasn't like that. She was, but she was traumatized when her parents were killed in front of her, and these guys were going to kidnap her, I guess, sell her into like sex slavery or something like that. But then that's when Eren comes in and, you know, starts killing the guys. But then one of them's left and grabs Eren, and he's trying to choke him to death. But you see Eren screaming out to Micajah, who's like terrified. You know, again, this is when she was a little girl, and you're thinking, wow, she was terrified. You're like, you wouldn't think that when you see her in the show, right? She's like totally stoic. She's just willing to just freaking punch anybody in the face without hesitation. But then you see her as a girl, she was super terrified of death, you know, traumatized by it. But you see him shouting and screaming to her that the only way to survive is to fight, you know, and it's just, and, you know, you've got to fight. And this is the stuff that, to me, just, I'm sorry. I just, oh my gosh, man, this, like I said, I understand. It's not real. But let's do a little bit of it, please. You know, if I'm being choked to death like that, I'm not sitting there giving her a moral lesson of what she must do to survive. I'm sitting there trying to catch my breath because this guy is choking me to death. And usually being choked to death doesn't take long for you to pass out. But he's in the middle of it, he's doing that to her. And see, to me, that, again, I don't mean to be super critical. I'm trying to be as sympathetic as I can, but I saw once in a video a guy say that if you have to tell your audience what's happening rather than show them what's happening with a character, you're not doing a good job. You should be able to show it rather than having to tell it, you know. You should be able to show the audience this is a moment of humor rather than having to tell them, and this was something that was funny, something like that. You know, if you have to do that, you're not doing a good job in conveying what you want the audience or the reader to know. And that's what I see here. That what the producers want Micajah to learn here is that she has to fight. She has to be willing to kill to survive. You can't just be a freaking pessimist. You've got to be willing to kill for those you love. It is true. Sometimes you got to do that. I know I have to. You know. I don't want to have to, but I've never had to been put in that situation, so I don't know how I'm going to act if I ever am. God forbid, but I may have to be in that situation. So that's what they obviously wanted to convey. But you could have done that without him. You gotta do it, because, you know, he's fighting for his life right there, and that he's focused on getting those hands off himself. You know, that's what he's going to be focusing on. That's just the way it is in real life. That's what's going to happen. You're going into survival mode. Now, for her, you could have her in her own mental reflection, realizing that, and she does sort of. You see her sort of do that, but that's all you needed to do. You didn't have to have him doing this super cheesy, thing with this dramatic music in the background, because a lot of times it feels like it's taking so long. It's like, dude, he should be dead by now, and it just seems so awkward and just not very real, and all that stuff. And so, that's I'm sorry, that's my thing. That's my shtick. Yeah, that's my big problem with that. So you could have done that without him doing that, and but the show does this periodically and this kind of thing. I'm just like, oh man, dude. So I'm looking past that to looking at the content and the plot and all that stuff, and I find that very, very good. I like that. I think that's really good, and I'm actually interested in the show. I am invested in the show. I sort of binge watched a little bit. I don't normally binge watch stuff because shows these days, I don't know, I just don't like them. They're not very original anymore. So it's very rare to find something that's original. So I appreciate that about this show. So I'm very interested to see what happens next. Yeah. So that's my long review. I didn't mean it to go that long, but my long review of Attack on Titan as I've seen so far. I hope it's something that's interesting for people. I'm doing these things because I guess this is a nerd thing for me. I'm sort of into this kind of stuff. But I do have to get ready to take off here pretty soon. In a few minutes, I gotta eat breakfast still. Oh, okay. Yeah. I like I said, I hope this is something interesting. I want to do more of these kinds of stuff. You can check out my other stuff. Like I did a review of Star Wars, the Star Wars trilogy, the latest one. You can check that out as well. I'm sorry I go this long and stuff like that. I hope it's interesting. I don't know, but I want to do many other stuff too. Like I said, I want to do things that I'm observing as I watch, and I pay more attention to stories, movies, and TV shows and stuff like that. Because I believe, I believe that, and I'm a Christian. I believe that Scripture is God's word. I believe in the triune God. I'm an Orthodox Christian. I'll say that. You can see my cross here, and you can see my shirt, Sola Gracia, the 5 solas of the Reformation. I'm a Christian who loves storytelling. I believe storytelling can be so impactful, and I believe that there are things that Attack on Titan is trying to convey to the audience that I pay attention to. I pay attention to these things. I don't just go watching movies, and I don't watch TV shows just for the entertainment value. But I'm asking myself, what are the producers? What are they trying to tell me? What's the message they're trying to get across to me in the midst of this entertainment? Because I think we underestimate just how powerful storytelling can be. I believe the Bible is one grand story that God is telling. It's a true story. I'm not saying it's mythological, but it's a true story that God is telling. And it's the greatest story ever told. It's just gonna take me another 2 hours to go through the whole thing here. But because of that, I believe God is telling us, the grand storyteller is telling us that we should be storytellers, to tell the gospel, as I have done with this little book, to tell the gospel in storytelling. I think some of the most impactful pushes of the gospel in the culture is by storytelling. Pilgrim's Progress, wonderful little allegory. I have the book sitting over there. I haven't totally finished it yet. I'm about like 3/4 way through. And then C.S. Lewis's books, just incredible stories. The Lord of the Rings, wonderful story. Things like that. And that's my inspiration to writing stories, my fantasy novel and stuff like that. So anyways, gotta go. I hope this is interesting and useful. Soli Deo Gloria, guys. God bless. I'll talk to you later.